What is good, my guys and girls of YouTube? It's your boy Justin Omoi, and today I want to teach you guys and girls about saturation or saturization, whichever sounds better to you. You use that word. Alright, starting with the first thing, what is saturization, or what is saturation? What is what? Saturation in music, at least, is going to be an overfill of a signal. Back in the day, when people used tapes, other magnetic recordings, instead of using computer digital wise, if a signal were to go overload, aka it's more than what the tape recorder's magnetism could handle, what will happen is that it would overflood and add in this color stuff called saturation. But this color is something that people nowadays would look into to be like, hey, I can make my stuff sound warm. Where this term warm is actually a fake analog, I guess you could say, or trying to make your sound analog as possible. So anytime you really hear the word warm, think about, I want my shit to sound like analog. And this warm is basically the saturation, aka adding the distortions into your sound. The warm distortion. And by the warm distortion, I actually mean the saturation's harmonics that it adds in due to the distortion. So let me go into the computer and show you this as an example of what the saturation is. Here we have a sine wave. So if I close that off, we have a 3x oscillator looking just like this. Turn these off, sine wave 12, and I have the piano roll note. If I can find it over here, E6. Oh, the reason why it's not loud is because that. So that's how it sounds, just like that. Now what I'm going to do is show you how it sounds with the saturation over it. You may not hear it, but you can see it over here in this region where the harmonics are being applied. To be able to give you a better see or hear of it, I'll raise up the gain and I'll also filter it to this part here. So once again, let me put down the saturation. You see over here, around this area here, you see that that little curve there. You hear that? That's the harmonic distortion, aka the warmth you would hear with analog sound. Let me just raise up the gain. Just like that. What you just saw there on the computer was a type of tube saturation plugin thing, aka FL Studio's Fruity Limiter. It's a tube saturation. So there's a thing called the tube saturation, and there's a thing called a tape saturation or saturization, whatever. The tube saturation is going to be types of saturations that affect one signal. So basically, back in the days, even now, my little tube amplifier here, it has a tube in there. This is to create the analog warmth. Whereas the tape saturation is going to be things that come through from a actual tape device. So instead of recording into a tube amplifier, it goes, all that stuff goes into a tape device, something like a J37 tape. And we do have a plugin like the J37 tape plugin from Waves, as well as some other things like the Karmer tape that I use in mastering. That is also a type of tape saturation. And I guess we could even say isotope vinyl in some way, even though that's a tape emulation in a sense, because it's raising up noises and stuff. I don't know. But just know that there's two types of saturizations that really matter for the most part, the tube and the tape. There's also something called a transistor, but you don't really want to care about that. One last thing before I shut up and let y'all do your life. What is saturation good for? Technically, it's good for everything, but you just have to understand its warmth, understand its limits, understand what you want to do with it to make it, overcome. For drums, it's beautiful. You can add in harmonic distortions to things like, snares or even hi-hats if it calls for it. toms, drums if you wish. And you can add in the warmth, the flavor. I know I keep saying warmth, but you know, it adds in the extra flavor to make your digital sounds sound a bit more realistic, like it was on the actual analog, which is, you know, what we really want to fight with when we use saturation, or I guess you could say when you want a real song in the end. So yeah, you can use it on drums, toms, snares. You can even use it on your vocals. You could create a nice style like this example I'll show you right now. So here I have a project from the homie named Matt Black, who sent it in to mix and mastering. He sent me the games for Paper Mario and Final Fantasy 2 or 3, one of the two. But yes, thank you again. I just want to show you his vocals and what it would sound like with a saturation. I'm gonna just play a little piece. Let me go over here.
Of everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back.
And the reason why I wanted to put a tube saturation on it, he didn't want it, but this is how it would sound. I have to probably adjust it.
Of everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back. People out here faking it a rugrat.
So hearing that vocal alone with this type of saturation could give a flavor of making it sound gritty, or, you know, analog. What's the word? Emotional feel.
Of everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back.
So
people out here faking it a rugrat.
Oh wait.
I don't pick.
So you see how you hear the drive for this one? It's like a heavy distortion versus not having it. Let me go back to that spot.
Everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love.
So here, fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back.
Everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back. Everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back.
So you hear the difference with it if we use in a saturation.
For acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that.
You have an extra gritty analog feel, which helps the vocals in this case for me, in my opinion. But for him, he doesn't like it, so I have it off. It's all good. It's all good. I see you. I see.
Fuck a hater, they don't love back. For acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back. For acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that.
So you can see when I raise the drive all the way up, you get that harmonic distortion. You know, it's a little bit like Kendrick in a way with that. Just basically the overdrive of the harmonics of the voice. It gives a good emotional feeling, and it could help the song if it's the way you want it to sound.
Everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back. People out here faking it a rugrat.
Since we're here, let me show you the Karma tape real quick. This is a tape saturation or emulation type of plug-in here. So I'll just give you a little example.
Everybody looking for acceptance to their cell phone. Fuck that. Fuck a hater, they don't love back. People out here faking it a rugrat. I don't pay attention to the suspect. Everybody trying to be a thug.
So you can see how we could do a overdrive on the recording level that would be over the magnetism of this device here, that it'll give it the saturation, aka the harmonic distortions, which could sound good depending on if you want it in the sound or not. And the noise. Can't do wrong without noise, make it more analog. So in conclusion, in summary, in finale, finito, saturation is something that creates a warmth, like I said. It's something to make the digital sound analog. Instead of having digital zeros and ones, dedicate everything, you can use in saturation to give this type of warmth, aka the harmonic distortions, which is something that could emulate how your voice would sound if ran through the analog hardware, aka the real deal, instead of just a audio interface, if that's all you use. Go ahead, play around with it, experiment with it. It's just a knob for most part. Thank you guys and girls for watching today's video. I hope that you like the, saturation and play around with it. Maybe it's something you can use for life. And yes, if you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, because, you can support your boy Justin Omoi, right? Subscribe if you haven't. My name is Justin Omoi. And with that being said, peace. Link in the description for the homie Matt Black, by the way. Peep it!